Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to the Live Fully Now podcast with me, your host, Shannon Ryan. This is a place where we talk about and discover ways in which we can move from simply surviving really to a space of thriving, of living life to the fullest with each breath, with each moment, really seizing the opportunity to live fully right here and right now. I am so honored to be here with you today. Thank you for sharing your time, your space, your energy with me. And I'm so excited to dive into today's topic, which is going to be all around all things heartbreak and how that leads to our heart opening. And before we get started today, if you are listening to this on audio, just know that there are other options. You can tune in on Spotify or my YouTube channel where you can see fabulous outfits and fashion and just really get a vibe for me in the flesh. If you like this podcast, please do subscribe or give a rating so that we can keep vibing together and having these in-depth conversations, because I truly believe that this is how we can create lasting impact and change in our world, is by having these difficult conversations, peeling back layers of the onion, getting to the core, and really doing this in a space of openness and of connection where we can all offer opinions and perspectives and really give each other permission to show up in our authenticity and to talk about differing perspectives and having these challenging conversations. So, again, thank you so much for being here today. And without further ado, let's get started in today's topic. So, as many of you may know, about 2.5 years ago, I actually separated from my partner of 8 years, and we went through a divorce. And to say it's been an initiation is an understatement, because I truly did not understand how difficult this was going to be um, when I first decided to go this direction. I knew that something needed to change. And if I'm honest, this isn't the direction that I anticipated or desired. However, this is what the universe wanted in my life. This is what direction I was pushed in. And, I've just had to roll with the punches and really embrace myself. And it's been a whole new level of self love. It's been a whole new journey of really nourishing and nurturing myself, and of not requiring my needs to be met or expecting my needs to be met by others. And many of us, in fact, all of us, when we're children growing up, we expect our needs to be met by our parents because we are not psychologically, physiologically able to care for ourselves in those first few years. And so everything depends on our parents. And a lot of the wounding happens when we're children and when our needs weren't met. And so what happens is that we really learn ways in which to push ourselves away from others. We learn different techniques to get our needs met, whether that means isolating, whether that means acting out, rebelling, whether that means anger or yelling, whether that means being the good girl or getting straight A's, or doing whatever your parents want you to do, or maybe causing all the trouble and missing school. Whatever it is, these are ways in which we as children learned to keep ourselves safe and to get our needs met. And as many of you might know, the main one of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the way that our primitive reptilian brains are wired is for safety. Our nervous system is all revolved around safety. And when we're children and our needs aren't met, we don't feel safe. And therefore, we cannot be inside of containers of healthy relationships if we don't heal these wounds and really bring our awareness to these woundings that happened to us as a kid. and also by bringing a lot of compassion and understanding and um, just forgiveness to ourselves for being in this state, because we came by it honestly. We were just little children seeking for our needs to be met, and we learned other ways to allow that to happen, to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves safe. So these are really beautiful ways in which our little selves became creative to make sure that we were safe. So there's so much beauty there, and there's also so much wisdom there when we can really, again, peel back those layers and understand what patterns and what ways our needs weren't met as children and how that's affecting our lives today. So I know for me, I definitely have these woundings of being needing to be this strong, independent woman, because at a young age, I didn't feel like my needs were met. I felt like I was all alone in the world, traveling back and forth between families, and I was always the oldest and had to carry everything for my siblings. And when all I really needed was to be seen and heard and nurtured and cared for. And so I learned to protect myself by being strong, by being silent, by putting my armor on and closing myself off from the world and not letting people fully love me. And for most of my adult life, I was entering one relationship after the other from this place of wounding. And it's interesting in retrospect now how easy it was to for me to get in relationship. I was a serial monogamist. I went from one 7-year relationship to another one, and these last 2.5 years is really the first time in my adult life that I've been fully alone and single, and it's blown my mind. Like, I'm so intrigued and curious as to, like, why is it so hard to find someone now? I don't understand. And then it's like, oh, actually, this is such medicine, and this means you're on the exact right path, because this means you're not trauma bonding. This means you are not willing to entertain karmic relationships that are the type of relationships you were attracting in the past of other unhealed, wounded people that were just magnetized towards each other. And now it takes a higher caliber of man who has done work on himself and who does have an open heart and who has healed his wounds. Obviously not all of them. It's a constant work, a constant journey that will never perfect. There's always more work to be done. I am such a work in progress, but there's a certain level of healing that needs to occur in order for you to fully love yourself and be okay in your own energy, in your own space, where you don't need other people to meet your needs. And it's been such a harrowing journey, if I'm honest. Really deep, dark, ugly truths and ways in which that I was showing up in the past that I wasn't even really aware of, just toxic patterns and ways in which I was expecting things from other people, expecting them to do things so that I felt like I was enough, so that I felt worthy, so that I felt loved. Because ultimately, I did not know how to love myself. And ultimately, I did not feel worthy without a relationship. And so I think for me, this has been such a necessary part of my journey. And I do believe that the universe placed this on my path for exactly that reason, because it's what needed to happen. It is what needed, the pain and the heartbreak needed to happen on my path for my highest evolvement, and the isolation and the loneliness, and really getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. Because being alone and being single in this world, and especially as a woman who's aging and getting closer to 40, it's painful, it's difficult, especially with the societal and cultural norms of, like, having a child and a family. And I feel like a lot of our culture glorifies or rewards people in partnership, and a lot of us single people just feel like we're not good enough or something must be wrong with us because we're not in partnership. And that's something that I really realized that was resonant and coming up for me, was that there was a degree in me that felt, and still some days feels, unworthy because I'm not in partnership. And I realize and I understand that I have been seeking that feeling from others rather than seeking it from myself. And the real truth is that my worth is never revolved around having a boyfriend, a husband, a partner. I am just as worthy alone as I am in relationship. But learning how to self-soothe, learning how to give myself the love, to listen to myself, to see myself, to understand myself, and to be with myself and not run away. That's something that I have been sitting with a lot lately, that in the past I have always run away from things, from feelings. When things get too serious, I run away. I run away from myself. I abandoned myself multiple times because I didn't want to feel what I was feeling. I wanted to push it down under and really just be living in this superficial happiness and play and lightness. And that's been such a deep lesson, is slowing down and listening fully to my body and my feelings and allowing them to come up without judgment and allowing them to be expressed and moved through me so that they're no longer pushed down and held in my body. So again, the this lesson, this path for me, I know was placed on my path for a reason, for my highest evolvement. I needed to go through this heartbreak so that my heart could be broken open, because I truly believe that without this, I would have continued to go down the same path with the same patterns and keep attracting and manifesting relationships of the same caliber that were not ultimately fulfilling or a match for me. Because what I really have always desired is that sacred union partnership, where we're both have done the work and know who we are and love ourselves, and in more of a dharmic relationship where we both are have a combined mission, vision, and dream, and we both bring out the best in each other so that we can ultimately work together symbiotically to bring the highest and greatest good for all beings out into the collective and truly make a difference on this earth, on this planet. So that is what I'm calling in. And I know that my soul needed to go through this pain, through these on my knees moments where I was just so in despair and so empty and broken and hopeless, and just thinking that I would never get out of this, days on days of crying and in despair and just not sure how I could go on one more day. And also just feelings of anger and resentment and like almost a feeling of abandonment, like I wasn't enough for you to fight for. And that's painful, you know, especially for me because of my abandonment trauma with my dad. And that's a very common theme and pattern for me, that when I feel abandoned, I get angry and mad. And ultimately, underneath the anger is just real deep sorrow and sadness. And so, really, being in the space where I am allowing myself to completely break down and go through all of the feelings, all of the emotions, all of the loneliness, um, has broken my heart open to a new space, a new dimension, where I truly fully believe that in the right time and the right place, I will meet the right person. And there's no rush. For so long, at the beginning, when I was in this transition, I was so desperately seeking a relationship that I was going on dates or trying to go on dating apps and meet people and all of this stuff, and quickly realized that that was not for me. And that was just really running and hiding, and avoiding what really needed to happen. And then it fully became like, no, I'm just going to sit with myself. I'm just going to be in this void. I am going to be in this space of transition where I don't need to go find a man. I don't need to try so hard to find it, because ultimately the lesson is coming back to that trust, and that belief, and the slowing down of the nervous system, where you have nowhere to be and nowhere to go. There's no end goal or anything, just being fully present with yourself in this moment and trusting that when the time is right, it will happen and it will be beautiful and organic. And there's no rush, enjoy fully being single right now, because once you get into a relationship again, you are just going to miss those single days where you had full freedom and didn't have to compromise or consider anyone else's feelings or anything like that. So it's been a space of, as life is, it's a cyclical journey. It's an up and down, it's a roller coaster. One day I will be totally fine and feel like I've moved on. The next day things will come up. I might get upset or triggered or angry, etc. And it's all okay. It's all okay, because we're human beings. And we put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect and to have it all figured out. And the reality is it's a process, and there's always going to be days where things come up. And if we can honor them and honor those feelings and really sit with them, then we can move through them, because ultimately emotions and feelings are simply just asking for our attention and our awareness to be witnessed and to be seen. And once we do that, they dissipate and they move. So it's been really amazing to fully sit with these feelings and these emotions. And it's a practice that I still continue to struggle with, but I am committed to healing my nervous system. I am committed to staying with myself and healing these wounds and bringing this awareness and authenticity and trust to myself, to my body, to my heart, and also bringing the love to my heart and meeting my own needs rather than finding somebody else to do it for me. And so, another thing that has come up for me revolves around safety and love. And I recently had a plant medicine ceremony, a journey where my intention was to feel safe, and what happened was ultimately me feeling not safe at all. So it's completely the opposite of what I desired. However, it was exactly the medicine that I needed in that moment. It was through that darkness that I got a lot of clarity and a lot of answers, and that revolved around safety and what that meant. And the nugget of wisdom that I realized is that I was seeking to feel safe in the presence of others. And my realization was that, how can I feel safe with others if I don't feel safe with myself? So, really, it's an inside job. You need to find the safety and the trust within yourself first. Same thing goes with love. It's an inside job. What if you have to fully love yourself before you can allow anyone else to genuinely, authentically, fully love you? Because otherwise, it's just these external seeking validation and expectations and all these things that are so not whole. And again, it is an inside job. You have to love yourself first. You have to create the safety within your own self first before you can feel safe in your world and feel safe around others. And so, my invitation is to really sit with that and see how that feels in your body and in your being. And also for you to know that you are the one you've been waiting for. We are the ones we've been waiting for. I feel like so many of us, and I can't speak to the experience of men. However, as a woman and as a little girl who grew up in America, I feel as though many of us women were sold this false narrative and this false fairy tale of what love is supposed to be like through all of the Disney movies. And it's really created a lot of distortion in what we're looking for and seeking and what we think true love looks like. And the reality is it's not always perfect. And the reality is that not one person is ever going to meet all of your needs or check all of the boxes. There's always going to be things that you need to compromise for. There's always going to be things about this person that you don't like. It's just about really understanding what those non-negotiables are, understanding what your top values are, and making sure that those align um, with the other person as well. And I feel like we are just so mesmerized and have romanticized this need for this knight in shining armor to come save us and whisk us away into this fairy tale. And when it's not like that, we think that something's wrong and we think that this is not the right relationship. And I know that I have done this so many times. In my perfectionism, I have been seeking this perfect man, this perfect relationship. And the reality is that doesn't exist. And that is why I have left every one of my partners. They were all amazing men. And I left them because of my own ignorance and my own conditioning, thinking that this was not perfect enough as I had imagined it in my head, and that something is missing or something must be wrong. But the truth is when you can find a man who fully supports you, your dreams, who literally adores you and worships the ground you walk on, and is your biggest fan and supporter, you should never walk away from that. And there's always room for compromise and for moving through things and not giving away or running away, giving up or running away, which is what I've done so often. And ultimately, that is my trauma, that is my reaction to getting too close, because it's this subconscious belief that if I let people love me fully, they will leave me, and that will be too painful to withstand. So it's easier if I close myself off and run away from it before it gets to that point. And ultimately, this has caused me a lot of distress and a lot of pain in my life, and also to the other people in my life, not letting them love me and ruining or self-sabotaging good things because of fear. And so that is my invitation as well, is to really examine your patterns, examine the ways in which you're showing up in relationship and with yourself, in relationship to yourself. And what are the patterns, what are the beliefs, what are the underlying things that are maybe limiting you? Do you see any patterns? Do you see any unhealthy coping skills or behaviors that are coming up over and over again? And how can you move through those or bring awareness and compassion to those so that you can change them? I think so often we tend to blame the other person in relationship rather than really taking ownership and accountability for our own actions. And that's because it's easier to do that. And the reality of relationships is that it's simply a mirror. So whatever you're getting mad at them for is ultimately something within you that you need to heal. So it is a beautiful relationship of showing you exactly the mirror that you need to reflect back to you what needs work. What are your triggers? What are your insecurities? What are the common patterns that keep coming up? And how are those getting in the way of you fully, most openly, authentically opening your heart and loving with your full capacity? So, again, what if the journey wasn't always about finding the love of your life in someone else? What if it was all about falling in love with yourself? What if you were the love of your life? What if you were your beloved? What would it feel like to you to write yourself wedding vows? Which ultimately I had the pleasure of doing a few months ago in my Toltec medicine wheel graduation, and it was so emotional and so beautiful and so difficult. We had to walk down the aisle and look at ourselves in the mirror and write vows to ourselves. And one of the ones I can remember for myself was I was never going to leave myself. I was always going to love myself. I was always going to be there. And it's such a beautiful practice because when you think about it, everything in this reality is changing. The only constant is change. So we cannot get so attached to people, places, things, anything, because it's all ephemeral. It's all constantly changing and moving and taking new form. And so the less attached we are, the better. And really, when you understand that you are the only one that you're going to spend your whole life with, like it makes perfect sense. Like we should be falling in love with ourselves. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And when we can fully fall in love with ourselves and get really comfortable in sitting with ourselves and nurturing ourselves and meeting our own needs and loving ourselves fully, and feeling safe within our own presence and trusting ourselves to show up for ourselves, it becomes a beautiful space to allow someone else to enter into if you do desire or seek a relationship, because you always have that home within yourself. Therefore, if anything happens in that relationship, you know you have a solid foundation, a solid home, a solid space to come back to, and it's not as scary or painful when you are firm in who you are and how you love yourself. And this has been the medicine for me lately, has just been falling more deeply in love with myself and really realizing that I'm the one I've been waiting for. And anyone else that comes in will just be a beautiful added bonus. But until that happens, I'm going to continue to water my garden and really allow the most beautiful flowers to bloom, and through the sadness and the sorrow and through the heartbreak, because I truly believe that through this heartbreak, through this pain, through this breakdown, I have allowed myself to break through. I have allowed my heart to break open. I have created more space for love, not only for myself, but for others around me. So, yeah, I can only imagine that most of us have been through a really difficult initiation when it comes to heartbreak. And I would love for you to bring in that awareness, and invite in the message of allowing it to break you open. Give yourself permission to break down fully so that you can break through and break open, because your big, beautiful heart no longer needs to be in that armor and hiding itself from the world. We don't need to live in fear of rejection. We don't need to live in fear of heartbreak. Yes, it's so painful. However, how beautiful is it to be given the opportunity to love? And I will never choose to close my heart off to love, even if it means that I might get heartbroken again. And the odds are that I will. And that's okay, because to be able to love is so worth it. So, my invitation to you is to not let the world harden that beautiful heart of yours, and to continue to allow space for opening and blossoming of your heart, clearing out those cobwebs, clearing out that stagnant energy, clearing out that sadness, that grief, that anger, all of the things, feelings, emotions that are stored within there, really fully expressing them and moving through them so that you can create new space in that heart, create more openness. And it's in that energy and that frequency that you will attract beautiful human beings into your space. And it is also in that space where you can create more room for loving yourself and for falling deeply, madly in love with the beautiful human that you are, because you are so worthy of love. And I hope that you know that you are seen, you are heard, you are loved, you are enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing your time, your space, your energy with me. Such a blessing to be here with you. If you want to connect going forward, I have my information in the show notes. And otherwise, I look forward to speaking with you next week. I am actually on my way to Japan in 2 days, to Okinawa. So I will likely next week be speaking to you live from Okinawa. But until then, have a blessed day and keep shining, keep spreading your light, your medicine, your magic. Big love.